I'd like to call the work session to order for March 3rd, 2025. Read the roll call, all here. All right, we have one item on the agenda tonight. I would like to remind council staff will be pausing every so often to answer any questions. We have the fiscal year 2025 strategic plan, water and wastewater analysis for 2024 integrated water master plan. Welcome back, Barb, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor just mentioned, I'm here to give you an update on your strategic plan item, water and wastewater analysis. So we had a couple of action items we completed over this past year. One of them was to go through and update the city's models for water and sewer, get the information we needed to then update the city's integrated water master plan. So this evening we're going to go over what is an integrated water master plan, what is the purpose of the integrated water master plan, or IWMP as we call it for short. We're going to discuss the water planning areas. In the document, we break the city up into smaller, more manageable portions of the geographic area. And then we're going to go through each of the focus areas. The plan, you have a copy of the executive summary in front of you if you'd like to follow along, but it was broken up into 4 main focus areas. And then we'll go over some key takeaways and our next steps. First of all, what is an integrated water master plan? So the general plan is a document you guys are probably very familiar with, and it was recently updated. Well, the integrated water master plan is similar in that it looks at our current conditions and our growth projections. It uses the general plan information on where and when growth will occur to inform our projections. And then this plan specifically relates to water and wastewater and for the city's service area only. So we're going to look at water resources, which are what we like to refer to as paper water, and those are the legal water rights that the city has. And we are going to look at our systems, which is the physical infrastructure that we use to deliver those services. We master plan so that we can continue to meet or exceed industry standards for our current customers while we plan for and can bring on new growth. This plan should be updated every 5 years. So the purpose of the plan, again, we've seen some rapid increase in our population. I think we're at 117,000 right now. Our service area is smaller than the total city's population, but we still experience a lot of growth. So we need to ensure we have the water resources for our future growth. The study included an update of the models. So those are a bit like a computer model of the water and sewer systems. So we could look at our current conditions and then when and where growth will occur within the system. Sorry, I need a Kleenex. Sorry. There it is. Thank you. I don't know why my nose started running. Okay. Another one of our strategic plan items was to modify our designation of assured water supply. We used the same consultant to complete that application, and it was approved by council in March of 2024 for us to submit that application, and we have done so. We also needed to develop strategies for the Rainbow Valley area, which is an area we don't currently serve, but we see it in the horizon, and we need to come up with strategies for how we think we can serve that area. So going on to the planning areas. Again, these are just geographical areas that we broke the plan up into so we can manage it a little easier with the systems as we build. So one thing we want to point out here is the sub-basin boundary. So what you'll see here in this yellow and black dotted line is these are what the Arizona Department of Water Resources have defined aquifer sub-basins. So these are, think of them almost as individual buckets of water under the ground in these areas with these boundaries. And their recent moratorium on new growth that's reliant on groundwater only applied to 3 of the sub-basins in the Phoenix AMA. It did not apply to the Rainbow Valley sub-basin, which is shown here in the southern part of our city. So I just want to make that clear. So that area can still get certificates of assured water supply and grow using groundwater. Also pointing out, so in water planning area 1, which is north of the I-10, it's our private providers. We have a couple private providers up there. It's still shown on the map and mentioned in this study because we do serve some sewer in that area. And then the planning areas 2 and 3 are primarily where we've been growing historically. And then finally, the water planning area 4, which we're referring to as Rainbow Valley. So when I mention that in this presentation, you kind of have an idea. We're talking south of the Estrella and Canamia subdivisions. Okay, and then the 4 focus areas. So one is our water resources. Again, think paper water. This is where we have contracts and water rights, things that allow us to legally access water. And then our systems, we have water, we have wastewater, and we have our reclaimed water systems with infrastructure, and I'll get into that a little bit more in the presentation. So if you're looking at the executive summary on page 4, we get into the water resources section. And for starters, this graph on this screen is showing how all of the different types of water that the city has legally available to us. And you can see we have a pretty diverse portfolio, which is what you really want to have. You want to have options and ways to manage those items. And this shows how our current resources can cover even as we expect to grow. The biggest portion of this graph is our surface water. And those are Colorado River supplies. And we have contracts with both CAP and the Gila River Indian community that allow us to get water from this, from the Colorado River and Central Arizona Project. The state has agreed to recognize these waters in our designation as we've applied for the modification. In the past, they didn't recognize these supplies because we didn't have a way to bring that water into our city physically. But since we've built a pipeline and a surface water plant, we now have the means, and we do currently bring that water into the city. So the IWMP also looked at various shortage scenarios, and the other one that you see in your summary is a very extreme 65% shortage. And as you can see, that would impact our ability to grow if we saw a shortage on the Colorado of that extreme. Some of our other supplies being groundwater, both in the West Salt River Valley subbasin, and then future we're going to add groundwater supplies for that Rainbow Valley subbasin into our designation. And then reclaimed water is another really big piece of our resources, and it's owned and controlled by the city, so this is probably one of the more valuable resources that we have today. And then our long-term storage credits. So whenever we can, we take all of the water that we have available to us and store them either through partnerships with irrigation districts or the underground storage facilities that we have contracts with in order to increase our long-term storage credits. So think of it like a bank account where you put extra money in your savings. So some of our recommendations that came out of this section were to implement a water policy. So this will be, how do we take these resources and how do they apply to help support the growth in our service areas? I'll be bringing that a policy back at a future work session so we can discuss and get direction from mayor and council on how we move forward with implementing something like that. We want to maximize that reclaimed water. As I mentioned, it's something that we own and we have full control of. So we want to seek beneficial uses for this resource. And we want to be sure we're getting either credits or directly reusing, or we're getting exchange or in some way getting our beneficial use of this resource. Again, Rainbow Valley, we're seeking groundwater for our designation in that Rainbow Valley area to help support growth down there. And then the last one, we have been working, and many of you may have heard us talk about the modified Bartlett Dam. This is a really large project that Salt River Project has been working on, and what it would do, it would increase the height of the dam that is located at Bartlett Lake, which is on the Verde River system, which would allow for additional storage. There are 22 stakeholders currently, and they range from water providers to tribal entities that are supporting this project and working towards a completion of the dam modifications to free up some water that we could potentially bring to Goodyear. It's unique in that in the past, Salt River projects have always only served their project lands, but this one would be different in that it would be available to others, including, Goodyear. There's Buckeye, Queen Creek, several cities, like I said, some tribal entities, private water providers. There's numerous people working on that project. And then moving forward, we're going to talk about water infrastructure. Again, if you're following on your executive summary, that's page 5. And I know this map is kind of hard to read, but what I wanted to really point out here is this is water planning areas 2 and 3 is where the bulk of our infrastructure is, and all those blue lines are pipes. That's where we own and operate pipes to deliver water to hydrants for firefighting, to homes, and then in there are wells that we use to pump water from the ground, those groundwater supplies that we have rights to. We want to be able to bring those up through our well system. And we have treatment plants, both groundwater treatment plants and a surface water treatment facility. And then we have storage. There's large storage tanks, and those are designed so that we can meet our peak demands while simultaneously able to fight a fire should one break out. So we need to make sure we have our systems ready for that. Some water infrastructure recommendations that came out of this plan were to expand our surface water treatment plant. We built this facility and brought it online in January of 2022. We thought it was going to last us maybe 10 years or more. Again, through the rapid growth, we're seeing that capacity eaten up pretty quickly. And so the recommendation was to expand it from the 8 million gallons per day it is today to double its size to 16 million gallons a day by 2030. We need to install additional storage as our demands are going up. Those peak times, our peak demand is also rising. We need to make sure we can still provide that fire suppression and peak supplies, so we need to increase our storage capacity. And then we need to create a pressure zone. So in the planning area 3, south of the Gila River, we already have 2 different pressure zones. In planning area 2, which is between I-10 and the Gila River, it's all under one zone currently. And so during peak demands along the I-10, we struggle to maintain pressures without increasing pressures so high that we overpressurize down by the Gila River. So by putting in a pressure zone break, we can accomplish that without overpressurizing areas in the south. So we definitely need to do that pressure zone break and then expand some groundwater treatment. We do have some pumping capacity at our wells that don't have treatment currently, so we'd like to expand some of our groundwater treatment facilities in order to maximize our pumping capacity. Moving on to wastewater infrastructure. Again, so this is where we have planning areas 1, 2, and 3. You see in the top left there is the EPCOR water service area where we serve sewer. Excuse me. Again, we updated the model for this system and looked at demands in 5 and 10-year increments, how and where we expect growth to occur. And what you'll see here in this wastewater infrastructure, those green lines are pipes. Mostly, they are gravity sewer pipes and manholes. However, when those pipes get too deep to make it where we can reach them to do work on them, we have, we call them lift stations. I call those sewer elevators. Essentially, they lift the sewer up to an elevation where they can flow through gravity again at a higher elevation. So there's lift stations, and then we have 3 wastewater treatment plants that we operate as well. Some of the recommendations that came out of this section were to implement our brine solution, which I know you guys have seen several times, and we'll have another presentation at the regular meeting. So we need to make sure we get that project implemented, and that is to take those byproducts of some of our groundwater treatment out of the sewer plant and managed in a separate way that would be more feasible and more sustainable. We identified some areas in our sewer system that had increased demands from what we had originally planned. And so we need to do some infill work, some areas that are already built out. We need to expand the 157th Avenue Water Reclamation Facility. There was a strategic plan to design that expansion, and we are working on that now. We weren't sure timing-wise if we would be able to postpone the construction, but with the growth we've been seeing, we don't think that's a possibility. We're probably gonna have to just move right into construction of that expansion. And then the Rainbow Valley Water Reclamation Facility needs to be expanded, which is not news to us, and we're already working on with a design build team to design and construct that expansion. So finally, our reclaimed system, which is much smaller. Again, it's page 7 of your summary. So this is all in planning area 2. The only reclaimed water resource that we have currently is the 157th Avenue facility. The developer gets all the reclaimed water from Corget and Rainbow Valley currently. So this is a much smaller system. And it consists, some of the infrastructure are pipes, pumps that we pump from the facility to get it up to our recharge facility, which we call the SAT site, which is shown here in the star. So those are where we have recharge basins, and those are just kind of low tech. You just put water into these basins, and you let gravity do the work to draw those back into the aquifer so we can replenish those supplies. And then we do have a few wells that were installed that were designed as Vadose zone wells. Our groundwater levels are pretty shallow, so there's not enough Vadose zone existing to get water into the ground through gravity in those wells. So we're looking at potentially putting pumps on them and trying to inject them, I guess it would be a better terminology for that rather than. So that's our reclaimed system. It's pretty small. So some of the recommendations coming from this section are to increase our recharge capabilities in this planning area too. So we can do that through maximizing our SAT site capacity. So currently, there's some piping constrictions that we can't get all the water to the facility. And there's been some talk that we might lose the facility, so we didn't spend the money to fix those pipes in the past, but we would like to maximize the capacity and improve the aesthetics of the facility to make it more of an amenity so that we can keep it in operation at its current location. It's really a great recharge. We get good percolation rates there. We want to look for opportunities for direct use. So the parks in the past had tried to put this resource to use. However, it wasn't very kind to their turf because we have a lot of that really salty water that's the byproduct of our groundwater treatment goes into that facility and passes through currently. But with the implementation of our brine project and removing that from this facility, we think the quality will be such that the parks might want it again. So it could be a good It would reduce the pressure on our potable system during the peak summer months, and it could save the parks some money on irrigation costs. We want to complete a study and look at recharge in water planning area 3. So that's down by that Rainbow Valley water reclamation facility that's currently going through an expansion. So the city is funding part of that expansion, and during the drafting of that development agreement, we were sure to reserve the reclaimed rights, the rights to the reclaimed water that's developed from that part we're paying for stays with the city instead of going to that developer. So we want to find a way to start recharging in that area so that when we start growing in Rainbow Valley and using groundwater for those customers, that we're already got a plan forward on how we're going to replenish those aquifers and make them sustainable moving forward. And then finally, when we've maximized any other option in the future, advanced water purification is definitely a possibility. And that is something that others used to remember us call direct potable reuse.
Is that toilet to tap?
No, we never use toilet to tap, Mayor. You know that. So that is our direct potable reuse. They're calling it advanced water purification. You can call it whatever you want, but there is technology out there. It is possible to take that water and make it. So in summary, as you all are very well aware, we've experienced unprecedented growth, and the growth has resulted in our facilities using up capacity quicker than the 2016 IWMP had anticipated. We also outgrew our designation. That designation was supposed to last us till the end of 2026. Right. We've had to modify that early as well. So what this study does is it gives us a roadmap of the infrastructure needs as we grow, and it will help us inform our rate study and our impact fee study as we move forward. So our next steps coming after this is, so this spring, it's going to be the water show quite a bit. We'll be bringing forward the water resource policy, as I mentioned earlier. We've been drafting one. We want to bring one together and get some policy direction from mayor and council on how we want to move forward with that. And then we want to adopt this integrated water master plan and adopt the policy at a later meeting. We'll do a work session first, and then we'll ask for you to adopt the policy. And then in the fall, we will draft and bring forward ordinances that allow us to enforce the policy with our stakeholders. And we'll also be looking at our rates and our impact fees with our partners in finance. This year was our last year in the 5-year plan that was adopted in 2021. So we're looking to start to look at the next 5 years. So the information in this study was very timely, and it will help inform that study as we move forward. And with that, I will take any questions?
Go ahead, Councilwoman Gillis. You're on.
Barb,
Yes.
great presentation.
Thank you.
And I just want to say to you, I am so glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Because I learn a lot from you, and you've been through a lot, and I'm just thankful that you're sitting there today.
Me too.
Anybody else? Just before you get it, real quick, I don't know if it's at the design guidelines or not, but a drop saved is a drop we don't have to pump. So if we ever looked at, and maybe we have, and I just need to be reminded, on getting rid of real grass and replacing it with the fake grass. And either with our design guidelines, when new come in, all right, to either require that to try to save the watering piece, or a program in which people want to replace their grass with the fake stuff, and we, set some money aside to incentivize, because the more we can use to stop the watering of that, that's less you've got to produce. So I don't think we got a program quite in place like that yet, but I suspect, as water becomes a real critical piece of all of us for growth, that's something to try to take a look at,
We do currently have a rebate program for turf conversions for our residential customers. So if someone has grass in their yard that they want to convert to either desert landscape or some low water use, we have a rebate program.
Do we have a limited amount of money set aside for that?
Yes, we do. And we also apply periodically for WIFA grants, and we use those
Okay.
grant monies when we can get them to expand the program and allow us to give those rebates to more customers, because some of them are more popular than others. We are also working with Development Services.
Okay.
When they update their design guidelines, we try to ensure that water conservation is included in
Okay,
there.
good.
And one of the things that you'll hear a lot that, our industry has been talking about is non-functional turf. So we want to avoid putting turf in places that it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we're okay with, turf is important for play fields, places where
Right.
families can gather. It doesn't make sense if they're on a slope where you can't run and play in it. It doesn't make sense to be in a median
Right.
or on the corner of an intersection. Nobody's going to play in that. You're not going to toss the ball around in that turf.
No.
So we use that term non-functional turf, and that's something that we would like to get implemented in the design guidelines, where we would prohibit any non-functional turf. That would go a long ways. Some cities have already done that.
How about for new homes? Are we encouraging them to probably use the non-functional turf, so to speak, as opposed to real grass?
Yeah, I don't know that there's much turf in our single family, and I don't know what our current standard is, but I don't think
You
we
don't have to answer that now,
typically see it in the
just throwing
front.
that out, because like I say,
Yeah.
a drop saved is one that we don't have
Yep.
to pump, so.
Correctly.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I just had a question along that. Do HOAs get a credit or rebate or anything for when they switch over? Like, I know Canyon Trails right now, they've been converting a lot of their turf to
Yeah, and
rocks.
I believe our conservation staff is Ray here still.
So,
That
I was
that
just-
is correct.
You wanna come up?
You want to come up to the podium?
I hear you, so yes. So,
Yeah, I know. Our conservation staff have been working with them for a long time to get some of that converted.
Yeah, I noticed that. I mean, the hills make sense. I mean, I wish it wasn't all of it, but yeah, but I know I've been noticing as I've been jogging through there that they've been switching over recently, so.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. That is correct. Our HOAs they can receive money to do conversions, and so we do have a program that does address the turf in there.
And then are we still doing the program where if a resident calls us, will help them with irrigation
Irrigation
or
audits.
leaks or?
Yes, our home irrigation audits, yes, we have those.
I can do that for myself here soon, but, okay. And then, yeah, I really appreciate that. And then, yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. This is something we'll continually be talking about over and over again. So a lot of good work.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Yeah, I'm looking forward, this has to always be one of our top priorities in the city as we continue to grow. So I appreciate all the recommendations. It's all great things. So I know you're the expert, but I really appreciate all the recommendations. So anything we can do to help is let us know. But yeah, I appreciate it. I think that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Did you have something, Molly? Did you have something?
Thanks, Barb. I just have a couple of real quick questions. I hope we have a good schematic that identifies every pipe and what it does.
Yeah.
Because looking at your map,
Yeah.
it looks like a child has scribbled it.
It was really hard to get that all on one slide.
I bet it was. I know we, in Pebble Creek, we had solicited Liberty more than once to come out and start or check our fire hydrants, and we found several that did not work just on my street. But I've lived in this house 25 years, and I have only seen them come out once. And it's really important that we are able to have the pressure to all these fire hydrants, because when our fire men and women come to a fire and they hook up, they want the water there. And I know it's kind of hard sometimes it's hard to believe that we may not have that capability. You know, we think we do. We all have a yellow fire hydrant in our yard. We hope it works. But thank you so much for that. And I know that the 22 entities that are working to enlarge Bartlett Dam will continue to do so. We just have to be really creative, because that's such a critical piece that we need, because we need to use that water, as many, many cities do. Buckeye, I'm sure, would be thrilled to get
Yeah.
that Bartlett Dam water. So if we need to do more, or if you can just periodically keep us abreast of
We will.
how the talks are going and how much they are able to do, or if they are, or if they need more from us, let us know, because there's no reason why all of us doesn't get on board to do this, because this is really important. So
We certainly will.
I know that the aquifer in Mobile used to be full. They had many, many beautiful orange groves down there, and then all of a sudden, the aquifer was gone. And now it's starting to come back again. But do we have any way that we can, as a city, manage how much is taken out of our aquifers? Because like in California, the farmers don't have any accountability whatsoever. They can have all the water they want. And when those aquifers go dry, we can't do anything about that until it replenishes itself.
The Arizona Department of Water Resources is the state entity that manages the groundwater in the aquifers, and that is why the Phoenix AMA model, when it showed that it was 4% short over 100 years,
Yeah.
they stopped that growth that was reliant on groundwater so that we didn't perpetuate that issue and that we can allow those aquifers to recover. They're fighting every year now at the legislation to protect that decision. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of those bills again this
I
year.
have, yeah.
And so we're trying to make sure that it doesn't get overturned because this foundation of this valley is based on that assured water supply program that came out of the 1980 Groundwater Management Act. And without it, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so we need to protect that program. We need to protect the cities that have done it, their due diligence and got their designations and that have an assured water supply. And we need to protect those people who are here today that were told that they would have a 100-year supply.
Right.
You know, we need to protect all of that. And so that's, again, looking at the Rainbow Valley area and understanding that groundwater is probably going to be the best solution down there. All we can do is try and do it wise, make sure that we're recharging when we can, what we can, and that we import water when and where we can. Some of that area might end up in a private provider. Again, I think you guys remember we've had some conversations with some developers down
Sure.
there that are really excited about growing, and they're so far removed from where our system is at that could be a possibility.
Well, thank you for being so diligent with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was on council in 2015 and 16, and I never dreamed that this city would boom the way it did. And I don't know that we asked the right questions back then, but we just never thought we would grow so quickly.
Right.
And it's very hard to do catch-up, especially with the water,
Oh, yeah.
because it's so critical. And anything that we can do that's proactive, I'm on board. Whatever it takes, if we have to, whatever we need to do. So just keep us please in the loop so that we don't get surprised.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kano?
Thank you for your ability to explain really complicated technical issues in a way that is understandable. And I also want to thank you for you and Ray for spending an hour with me last week going over the information on the plan, because it's interesting to think that Goodyear is where we are now because of the people who looked ahead and planned for all the infrastructure. And now we're at that place where we're really have to think about the next hurdles of getting what we need in the ground and above so that we can continue to grow. And with this plan, it was really the first time I think I've formally seen anything about Rainbow Valley. And I do appreciate that because it's sort of been hanging out there, not sure are we going, which way are we going, not really knowing, and knowing that that's the next frontier really for Goodyear. So I appreciate that that's going to be a part of the strategy. When do we expect to get the ruling from ADWR about our status, our
They say the
certificate?
process can take up to a couple of years. However, there are some license timeframes, and they've been overwhelmed. So if they happen to meet their timeframes and their schedules, I would expect an answer within a couple months.
Oh, okay. That would be wonderful.
We're getting- yes.
Because we're really left in limbo.
Right,
While
yes.
they're doing that. And then as you're working on the water resources policy, and certainly you're considering the advanced water purification, is there going to be a continued emphasis on conservation?
Most definitely.
Okay.
You'll-
One of my pet peeves, and Keeney knows because I now reach out to him, is finding water running down the street in Goodyear. And there's no penalty for it. It just, it can run and run and run until somebody says, hey, there's water running
Yeah.
down the street, and,
We definitely need those eyes out there.
yeah, well,
to
I'm
let
one
us
of them,
know.
in my, at least where I walk my dog, or where I drive. But, and then, and maybe this next question's a lot for Keeney, because this is a whole plan full of recommendations. And where does this fit in terms of next steps, strategic plan, CIP, and things like that? Money?
Okay, there we go. Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Kano, and members of council. This, as kind of Barb had mentioned, this is going to help inform our future work, whether it be working on the impact fee programs, the rate studies that we're going to be conducting, and hopefully before the end of the year coming back with revised rate schedule for council's consideration. But it also will help inform our capital improvement program for the next 5 years, and also working with developers as they look at developing in these areas, how that impacts, what we can do to be able to serve them and work through that. But there are elements within the strategic plan already. You mentioned conservation. We do have an item for next fiscal year that's going to be focused on a number of things, including conservation. And then we'll have the opportunity, if things bring up to the priority level, to be able to incorporate more projects within the strategic plan this coming fall that may involve around this integrated water master plan, our policy that we're going to be talking about later, or anything else that might come up from the legislative side when it comes to water.
So this is essentially setting the roadmap for then to start figuring out all of the details. And I'm certain that with the budget process, water should be having some input in terms of what you need for staff, or different. And it's unique because being an enterprise department, you have to pay your own way, and that will definitely making sure that you have the resources that you need to accomplish the things that you do. I recently ran into a water director of another West Valley city that used to be a colleague in Phoenix, and he was talking about how the price of chemicals and just everything related to water production and wastewater treatment has really impacted the budget and the rates. And so the gap between revenue and expenses has just gotten very close, which then leads to discussion about rate increases, which nobody likes, but it's inevitable. Can you just tell us where we are in terms of Goodyear for this last fiscal year of our enterprise fund?
Yeah, we've been, we meet regularly with our partners in the finance department, and we've been tracking those revenues versus expenditures, and our revenues have been covering our current expenditures. Again, we're about to embark on a new rate study for this last January. We adopted the final of the 5-year rate plan that was adopted by council 5 years ago. So we're in that last year of that plan. So we need to bring another one forward, which we plan on doing in the fall, so we can meet those statutory requirements before it's adopted in January.
Wonderful. And I understand that the Citizen Water Advisory Committee is going to have a role in that?
Yes, that
Good.
is correct.
That's a good plan. I think that we have a history of getting citizens involved when we're doing something big like that. And then my last question has to do with and I know it's going to be a part of the brine discussion, but does getting the brine out of the wastewater treatment then increase our capacity, our ability to provide other services?
Yes, so we currently send, on average, 800,000 gallons a day of that byproduct to that facility.
Wow.
With a peak in the summer, sometimes up to 1.5 million gallons. So we are it will buy us time. However, not only have prices gone up, but the time it takes to receive goods and services to construct an expansion has also increased. So we're really worried about how do we stay ahead of this growth without getting too far ahead of it, but still able to complete the projects in time. So this will definitely buy us that time for us to construct the expansion.
Okay. Well, I feel like Goodyear's in good hands with your leadership, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Councilmember Beckles.
Yes, I just wanted to say that after reviewing this for the first time, it felt like an impossible jigsaw puzzle for me, and along with Councilmember Kano. I thank you for the time you spent, the hour you spent going through it. I feel much better. And that's with even 8 years of working in water in Phoenix, that this really felt like an impossible jigsaw, but I thank you for that time.
You're very welcome.
Councilmember Gillis?
This question is actually for Paul. I need you, actually, because I have a couple of questions. Because I don't know how often we check our fire hydrants, but Wally had brought that up, and I don't want anybody listening to think that we don't check fire hydrants or that we're without water. Or,
The
okay,
water
either
department.
one of you?
Yep, the water department.
Wait, because I may have something.
We have a hydrant maintenance program.
Uh-huh.
We 50% of the hydrants every year. So that means a hydrant gets touched every 2 years. We go through, we double check that the pressures meet the requirements. They'll repaint it, they make sure it opens and closes and that it's operational.
So every hydrant in the city?
In the city's service area, in our
Okay.
service area, every water provider is responsible with their infrastructure, which would include the hydrants.
Okay.
So Liberty in the Liberty service area and EPCOR in their service area.
Okay, so who would I ask this question to? There would never be a position, we hope, that we would be in a position like California with Palisades, where they had the problems with no water being at their hydrants. We would never be in that type of position. Hopefully.
If it was in the city service area, there's water at the hydrant.
That's what I'm asking.
If there's a hydrant that's out of service because it needed to be repaired when we went to do the maintenance.
That's different.
We tag it and we notify our partners in the fire department. Anytime we take a section of pipe out of service for a repair, if it impacts a hydrant, we notify
We
the
know
fire
it.
department which hydrants have been impacted. The private water companies, we do not manage. We do not have control over their infrastructure, and so it would be up to them to make sure that their hydrants are maintained.
That's like Liberty? Okay.
And,
Never mind, Paul. Thank you.
sorry.
Yeah, Vicki, where me and you live?
Thank you, Paul.
It's Liberty, and unfortunately. yeah,
Great.
yeah. Have we ever,
Sorry.
let me ask you this, what's the communication between you and Liberty to make sure that they're doing what we're doing?
Well, we meet with them pretty regularly. We did just have another meeting because we know the summer's coming up and we're just to kind of spark those conversations and what can we do? Are you gonna, would you like us to start preparing the interconnect? You think you're gonna need water? Those kinds of conversations. Our conservation groups also work together very well. We try and, have a pretty cohesive message. We try and do like beat the peak messaging
Okay.
for summers. But again, it's a private company that's got utilities all across the United States, so.
All right, well, we'll have to talk to Moses. Yeah, yeah. All right, with that, thank you, and welcome you back.
Thank you, Mayor.
Looking good.
Thank you.
So again, thank you.
Excuse me.
And we know we're in your good hands with you. So with that, we need, what, about 15 minutes? So this minute's
We'll move
over,
to
meeting's over, and they need about 15 minutes to move everything over.
Everything over.